Sarah is a 35-year-old woman with soft facial features, kind brown eyes and thick brown hair. Her appearance always radiates warmth, although a little tired due to endless responsibilities. She is an optimist by nature who believes in people and sincerely thinks that love can overcome any difficulties. Her kindness borders on self-sacrifice. Sarah grew up in a small town in a family where parents always supported each other. She dreamed of such a strong homeland. Sarah loves to bake pies, take care of the garden and dream of a future together with her husband. She believes that harmony in the family is the main goal of her life. Michael is a 37-year-old man with an attractive appearance, tall, athletic, with a confident look of gray-green eyes. His always well-groomed appearance attracts the attention of others. Charismatic, but with notes of narcissism. Michael likes to be praised and does not tolerate criticism. He is used to being the center of attention. Michael grew up in a wealthy family where everything was ready for him. His parents often spoiled their son, but they did not have a warm relationship with each other. This formed in him a certain indifference to the emotional aspects of life. Michael loves his comfort, expensive clothes, cars, restaurants. He doesn't really appreciate hard work, because he's used to the fact that everything is easy. Sarah and Michael met in a cafe when they were 25 and 27, respectively. Michael immediately charmed Sarah with his humor and confidence, and Sarah attracted Michael's attention with her sincerity. At first, their relationship was perfect. Michael admired Sarah's care, and she enjoyed his energy and lightness. 2 years later, they got married. Sarah was happy dreaming of living together, and Michael believed that marriage was a convenience that would solve all problems. Sarah quickly took on all the responsibilities. She took care of the house, worked full-time, supported Michael morally. He took it all for granted. For him, Sarah was a guarantee of stability, but he did not think about how much effort she reported. For the first time, Sarah felt that something was wrong when Michael began to stay at work more often or go for a walk with friends. She justified it with his fatigue and the need to rest. Sarah became the heart of their home. She worked full-time as an accountant, but even after an exhausting day, she hurried home to cook dinner, clean the apartment, and take care of her husband. Sarah loved Michael, so she tried to make his life as comfortable as possible. She cooked his favorite dishes every day, ironed his shirts and even recorded his car for inspection. She sincerely believed that the more she gave in a relationship, the stronger it would be. Her parents always said, "A woman is the guardian of the family hearth," and Sarah adhered to this principle. Michael worked as a manager in an advertising agency. He loved his status and the freedom associated with it, but he did not help Sarah with household chores at all. His life seemed carefree. From work he often went to football with friends or to a bar. Michael took Sarah's care for granted. He even joked, "Why do I need to do something? You're Superman in a skirt." Words were easy, but there was no indifference behind them. Michael had no malicious intention, but he was used to the fact that everything was solved without his effort. Sarah's care allowed him to feel like a king in his own home. Their acquaintances were jealous of the perfect marriage. Michael's friends often said, "You have the perfect wife." Sarah smiled, but felt emptiness inside. Sarah began to notice that her efforts were not only not appreciated, but also ignored. Michael didn't even thank her for a delicious dinner or a clean house. Sometimes she wondered if he noticed her efforts at all. Sarah slowly lost her inner harmony. Her life has become an endless cycle of responsibilities without mutual support. Sarah tried to talk to Michael, hinting that she was having a hard time, but he dismissed it. "Well, why are you doing this if you are tired? Just stop." He didn't realize that for Sarah it was not just a duty, but a way to express love. Michael began to stay at work, justifying it with new projects. However, Sarah noticed that after such delays he smelled of perfumes that she had never bought. Sarah believed that these were temporary difficulties, and tried to please Michael even more. She hoped that her care would return his attention and warmth again. She often said to herself, he is just tired, he is having a hard time now. I have to support him. Sarah deliberately ignored the alarm signals because she was afraid to admit that her ideal marriage could have problems. One day, Sarah decided to clean up the house after another dinner, which Michael missed, citing an urgent meeting with a client. She took his jacket to hang in the wardrobe and accidentally stumbled upon a phone that fell out of her pocket. A message appeared on the screen from an unfamiliar contact. I miss you. When will we see each other? Her heart tightened. Sarah didn't want to draw conclusions right away. She decided to talk to Michael. When he came home late at night, a little drunk, Sarah tried to ask him about the message. Michael replied sharply that it was just a colleague, and he didn't understand why Sarah was making a drama out of it. His coldness and irritability broke something inside her, but she forced herself to believe his words. A few weeks later, Sarah noticed new details: a different smell of perfume on his shirt, frequent delays at work, a lack of desire to spend time together. She tried to find an explanation, justifying Michael in her head. He was more irritable, even when she tried to make him pleasant, cooking his favorite dishes or offering to spend the weekend together. One day, during another travel trip of Michael, Sarah decided to put his office in order. There she came across a box with a gift, an expensive bracelet with engraving with "Love, Emma." Her guesses were confirmed. Sarah felt anger mixed with pain. She decided to put Michael in front of the fact. When he returned, Sarah showed him the bracelet and directly asked what it meant. Michael first tried to get out, but seeing the determination in her eyes, he admitted that he had an affair on his side. He justified himself by blaming their routine life and the fact that he felt incomprehensible. Sarah was stunned. She couldn't figure out how, after so many years of care and love, Michael was able to betray her. She could not accept his excuses, but decided to stay married for now, hoping that Michael would understand his mistake and correct himself. Her decision was the beginning of the end. Her sacrifices were still not appreciated, and the pain and disappointment only grew. Sarah could no longer close her eyes to what was happening. She felt that she was losing herself in this relationship, but still hoped that Michael would change. However, his behavior only worsened. He continued to cheat, hide his trips, ignore her emotions. Sarah began to notice how her husband's indifference affects her physical and moral health. She constantly felt exhausted, cried at night, lost interest in her favorite activities. One evening, when Michael was delayed again, Sarah decided to talk to Kelly's close friend, whom she trusted. Kelly listened carefully to her story and said what Sarah was afraid to admit: you deserve more. Michael takes advantage of you, but you still choose him, even though he hasn't chosen you for a long time. These words were painful, but they opened Sarah's eyes. The next day, Sarah decided to act. She began to think about her own future, independent of Michael. She remembered how she dreamed of opening a small bakery, but she abandoned this idea because all her energy went to the family. For the first time in many years, she allowed herself to dream only for herself. When Michael returned home, Sarah calmly but firmly told him that she could no longer live like this. She announced that she was filing for divorce. Michael initially reacted with anger, accusing her of ruining their marriage. But Sarah was unwavering. She no longer allowed his words to affect her. Michael tried to get her back, promising to change, but Sarah understood that his promises were empty. She saw him repeatedly violate trust, and knew that she could no longer live in these conditions. This time she chose herself. The break with Michael was a difficult but liberating step. Sarah moved into a small apartment, began planning to start her own business, and for the first time in a long time began to take care of herself. She realized that she no longer had to sacrifice her dreams for someone who didn't appreciate them. Michael was left in an empty house, slowly realizing that he had lost a woman who was his best friend, support and love. But now it was too late for him. Sarah started her new life with small steps. She moved to a cozy apartment in the city center, which she arranged to her liking: light walls, many plants, and a corner with shelves for cookbooks. which had long been waiting for their turn. For the first time in many years, she felt freedom, the ability to live as she wants, and not to adapt to other people's needs. She returned to the idea of opening her own bakery. Sarah began attending courses for entrepreneurs, studied the market and gradually developed a menu for the future institution. Working on this project brought her joy and faith in herself. She also enrolled in yoga classes, which helped her regain her inner balance and learn to love herself. One day, while visiting a farm market in search of fresh ingredients, Sarah accidentally met Alex, a man who sold organic honey. Alex was not at all like Michael, simple, sincere, and attentive. They started talking, and Sarah was surprised to feel that it was easy and pleasant for her to spend time with this person. Their meetings became regular. Alex did not demand anything from Sarah, but he supported her in all her endeavors. He helped her open a bakery, advised on the supply of groceries, but never imposed himself. Sarah saw for the first time that a relationship can be equal and bring joy, not pain. Meanwhile, Michael remained in his large house, which seemed increasingly empty to him. He tried to start a new relationship, but none of the women could replace Sarah for him. Gradually, he realized that he had lost the most precious thing, but it was too late to change anything. Sarah opened a bakery, which she called Sweet House as a symbol of the new life she created for herself. Her business quickly gained popularity, and people came not only for delicious pastries, but also for the warm atmosphere she created. Sarah no longer lived for just someone else. She began to value herself and her life. Alex stayed by his side, and their relationship gradually grew into a deep love. But now Sarah knew that even without him, she would still be happy, because her main support was herself. A year after the divorce, Sarah hardly mentioned Michael. Her bakery Sweet House became a place where people came not only for fresh croissants and fragrant pies, but also for the warm atmosphere that Sarah created. She found happiness in the little things, in the smiles of customers, morning coffee before starting work, in the time she could devote to herself. Alex remained an important part of her life. They traveled a lot together, visiting farms, tasting different types of honey and enjoying nature. Alex supported Sarah, but always gave her space for her own development. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and trust. One day, when Sarah was busy preparing for the Christmas market, Michael appeared at the door of the bakery. He looked completely different, tired, insecure, with a sad look. He came to apologize. Michael admitted that he understood how wrong he had treated her and how much he had lost. He said that now he sees how special she was, and regrets that he did not appreciate it then. He tried to hint that he wanted everything back, but Sarah only smiled politely. "Thank you for saying that, Michael," she replied calmly. "I have forgiven you a long time ago, but my life is already different. And I'm finally happy." Michael realized that her heart no longer belonged to him. He left, and Sarah felt no more pain or regret. She was relieved to realize that she had finally closed this chapter of her life. At Christmas, Alex gave Sarah an unexpected gift, a small heart-shaped medallion, inside of which was written, "Thank you for teaching me to love properly." He didn't make any suggestions, didn't set conditions, it was just a sign of gratitude and love. Sarah realized that she now lives exactly as she always wanted, with love, reciprocity, and respect for herself. Her path was not easy, but it led her to the most important discovery: true happiness begins with how you treat yourself. Her bakery flourished, and her life was filled with new colors. Sarah knew that there were still many challenges and joys ahead, but now she was ready for everything, because she learned again to appreciate herself and believe that she deserved the best. Months passed, and Sarah's life was filled with new meanings. Her bakery became a meeting place for local residents. There were evenings of live music, master classes on baking, charity events. Sarah became known in the community not only as a great baker, but also as a woman who unites people with her energy. One evening, as usual, she was closing the bakery when Alex came, holding a basket of flowers and a jar of honey in her hands. He looked a little excited, although he was usually very calm
and confident. "Sarah, you know how much I love you and admire you. But the most important thing is that I want you to always stay as happy as you are now," Alex began. Sarah looked at him with a smile, feeling his heart warm up. "I don't want to change anything in your life. I want to be a part of this life if you want to." He took out a small wooden case with a handmade ring, with a thin gold frame and a small diamond. "Are you ready to share your happiness with me and accept my love?" Sarah felt tears turning to her eyes. She remembered all those days when she doubted herself, when she was afraid to be alone, when she believed that without someone her life would not be complete. But now she knew that her happiness began with herself. She looked at Alex and smiled. "Yes, I'm ready," she replied, and her voice was filled with confidence and love. Their wedding was small, but very warm. They invited only the bakery's closest friends and customers, who became Sarah's second family. Everything was simple, but every detail symbolized the beginning of a new stage in their lives, from homemade decorations to a small wedding cake that Sarah baked with her own hands. After the wedding, Sarah and Alex began working on a joint project, the opening of a new establishment that would combine a bakery with a corner for honey products. They called him Sweetheart. Sarah worked on baking, and Alex was in charge of honey products. Their cooperation was as harmonious as their relationship. Sarah often recalled how far she had come. From a girl who lived only for someone else, to a woman who was able to find herself and create the life of her dreams. In the evening, closing the doors of Sweetheart, Sarah looked at the starry sky and smiled. Her life was imperfect, but this is where she found his true beauty. Years passed, and Sarah continued to develop as a person and as an entrepreneur. Her life was full of small and big victories, but most importantly, she never allowed herself to lose her own voice again. Sweetheart has become not just an institution, but a symbol of love, care and inspiration. Sarah organized weekly meetings for women who found themselves in difficult life circumstances. She shared her story, talked about the weight of herself and helped others believe in their own strength. Alex supported her in everything, reminding her that true love is not only care, but also the freedom to be yourself. One day, Sarah received an invitation to speak at a conference for entrepreneurs. Her story became known thanks to an article in a local newspaper, and now more people wanted to hear it. At first, she doubted whether to agree, but Alex said, "You inspire people every day. It's just a new way to do the same, but for a wider audience." Sarah spoke at the conference, talking about her path, about pain, loss, struggling with herself and how she found her own strength. The hall applauded standing, and after the performance, dozens of people came up to it with thanks. She realized that her story could change the lives of others. Later, Sarah began writing a book. It was a mixture of memoirs, culinary recipes, and reflections on how to find happiness even after the most painful losses. The book became a bestseller among the local community, and was later noticed by national publishers. Meanwhile, Sweetheart was expanding. She and Alex opened several more such establishments in neighboring cities, but Sarah always found time for her native bakery. She loved to work behind the counter, communicate with clients, hear their stories. One day, a young girl came into the bakery and looked confused. Sarah recognized herself in her eyes a few years ago. The girl shared that she is going through a difficult period in marriage and does not know what to do. Sarah invited her to sit down, made a cup of tea, and said, "You know, the most important thing you can do for yourself is to honestly answer the question, what makes me happy? When you find the answer, everything else becomes clear." These words, spoken with love and warmth, became a turning point for the girl. She returned to Sarah a few months later and thanked her for the support that helped her change her life. Sarah realized that her vocation was not only baking or entrepreneurship, but also helping others find themselves. It was the contribution that made her life truly complete. In the evening, sitting on the porch next to Alex, Sarah watched the sunset. She thought about how her life had changed. Once she lived for someone else, but now she has learned to live for herself, giving warmth and love to those who need it. I know, she said to Alex, if I could turn back time, I wouldn't change anything. All the difficulties brought me here, up to this point. Alex smiled and took her hand. And that's the best place we could be. The starry sky spread over them, and Sarah felt that everything in her life had finally fell into place. Over the years, Sarah and Alex's lives had become a symbol of harmony and true partnership. Their business flourished, and they focused not only on bakeries, but also on creating educational programs for young entrepreneurs. Sarah often held seminars where she shared not only baking secrets, but also life lessons. Once at one of her seminars, an elderly woman approached her. She thanked Sarah for the book, which inspired her to start her own business even at the age of 60. Sarah was moved to tears, realizing how much her story affects others. Meanwhile, Alex was working on the idea of creating a small eco-farm. He dreamed of growing natural products that could be used in bakeries. Sarah supported him, and together they bought a small piece of land outside the city. On this farm, they began to hold family festivals, children played with animals, adults participated in culinary workshops, and in the evenings everyone gathered around the fire. These events united the community and became a favorite tradition for many local families. Sarah also continued to support women who were in a difficult relationship. She organized a charitable foundation that funded psychological support programs, self-development training, and mini grants to start her own business. For her, it was a way to bring back to the world what she once received, a chance for a new life. One morning, Sarah woke up on the farm, where she and Alex decided to live most of the time. She went out to the terrace with a cup of coffee and looked at the sunrise that painted the sky golden pink. Alex was already in the garden, taking care of the plants. She smiled as she watched him work with love and care. "Have you had your time?" she shouted, laughing. "Not yet," Alex replied. "But if you make your famous pancakes, I'm willing to wait forever." Sarah knew that her path was not easy, but it made her strong and confident. She was no longer afraid of the future, because she knew that her happiness now depended only on herself. That same evening, when they were sitting by the fireplace, Alex suddenly said, "Have you ever thought how far we've come? From a small bakery to an entire farm, from simple dreams to helping people. It's unbelievable." Sarah nodded and hugged him. "Yes, but it's all because we never betrayed ourselves. And I feel like this is just the beginning." Deep down, Sarah realized that her life had become something she didn't even dare to dream of. Her story turned into a source of inspiration for others, and her heart was filled with gratitude for every day she passed. Years passed, and every new day brought Sarah and Alex new joys and trials that they overcame together. Their farm turned into a real center of community life, festivals, educational programs, and even weddings were held here. People were drawn to this place because they felt the warmth that Sarah and Alex put into every detail. Sarah began to write more. Her second book, Sweetheart, How I Found Myself, was an even greater success than her first. In it, she combined her stories, recipes, and reflections on the importance of self-esteem and self-love. The book received many positive reviews, and Sarah was invited to the national TV show to tell about her path. On television, she told her story again about pain, betrayal, loss, but also about how all these events helped her find true happiness. The audience was moved by her sincerity, and after the broadcast, she received hundreds of letters from people thanking her for the inspiration. Meanwhile, Alex began to implement another idea, the creation of a charitable initiative for children from low-income families. She and Sarah organized the Sweet Start program, which taught teenagers cooking, entrepreneurship, and gave them the opportunity to train in bakeries. For many of these children, this was a chance for a better future. One day, during another festival on the farm, Sarah saw one of her participants, a young girl named Lily, tell the guests with a sparkle in her eyes about her first job at the bakery, which became her second home. Sarah felt proud and happy to see how her help changed the lives of others. On the personal front, something unexpected also happened in their lives. A few years after opening the farm, Sarah found out that she would become a mother. The news was unexpected, but very joyful for both of them. Alex was thrilled, and Sarah took it as another opportunity to start a new chapter in her life. When their son was born, whom they named Henry, the farm became an even brighter and happier place. Sarah took the little one with her to the bakery. Alex showed him how to take care of the plants, and even customers began to call him the junior owner of the farm. Sarah often sat by the fireplace in the evening with Henry in her arms and watched Alex make tea. In these moments, she realized that she had finally found true harmony. Her life was not perfect, but it was real, filled with love, meaning and gratitude. One day, while walking through the farm, Henry asked, "What does it mean to be happy?" Sarah paused, looked at his inquisitive eyes, and replied, "It's when you accept yourself as you are, love what you do, and share that love with others." Henry thought, then smiled. "How are you, Mom?" Sarah hugged her son, feeling that a better definition of her life could not have been invented. Her story, which began with pain and loss, turned into an example of how even the most difficult moments can become an impetus to happiness and inner harmony. And Sarah knew that there were many more new and beautiful chapters ahead of her. Henry grew up in the love and warmth that Sarah and Alex put into every day of their lives. He was an inquisitive boy who loved helping his mother in the bakery and his dad on the farm. Sarah saw in him the harmony she had been going to for so long. He grew up in a family where respect and support were the basis of everything. One day, when Henry turned 10, he came to Sarah with a notebook and said, "Mom, I want to write a book about our farm. But I need your help." Sarah smiled, because writing books has now become an integral part of her life. She has already published a third book in which she shared stories of people who changed their lives thanks to her programs and bakeries. Henry's idea inspired her, and they began working together on a children's book in which they talked about the farm, animals, and the magic of cooking. The book, which they called Sweet Adventures on the Farm, became a hit among children and parents. Sarah was thrilled to see her son find his voice and his passion. Alex, as always, supported them and even came up with illustrations for the book, which were drawn by his artist friend. In the meantime, their business continued to grow. Sarah and Alex opened a new program, Culinary Camps for Children, where they could learn to cook simple dishes, take care of plants, and even bake their first bread. Henry often participated in these activities, becoming an example for younger children. Sarah felt that her dream had grown into something more than she could have imagined. People came to the Sweetheart not only for bread or cakes, but also for the inspiration that Sarah gave them by her example. One day, while celebrating the anniversary of the bakery's opening, a middle-aged woman approached Sarah. She introduced herself as Emma. Sarah was surprised at first, because the name was familiar to her. It was the same Emma who was once part of her pain story. But now there was a completely different person in front of her. Emma apologized for once being part of her problems and thanked her for the inspiration Sarah brought into her life with her openness and strength. Sarah accepted the apology calmly and gratefully. She realized that the past no longer had power over her, and even those who once caused pain could change. This moment was for her another confirmation that love and forgiveness are stronger than any pain. In the evening, sitting on the porch with Alex and Henry, Sarah watched the sunset. Her life became something she didn't even dare to dream of when she was in the darkest times. She was surrounded by love, support, and harmony, which she built step by step. "You know," she said, looking at her boys, "I always thought that happiness was some kind of end point. But now I realize that this is the way. And I am so grateful that you are following this path with me." Alex smiled and hugged her. Henry added, "We'll do so much together, Mom. This is just the beginning." Sarah knew it would be like that. Her life continued to be filled with new colors, and there were many more happy moments ahead of her.